As many of you know, my middle name is Graham, Peter Graham Dunn. Our company is called P. Graham Dunn. Our son Thomas, who's 26 years of age, is also called Thomas Graham Dunn. And we've been asked the question many times, where did the word Graham come from, or the name Graham come from, and why the emphasis on Graham? Well, the story goes back to the late 1930s in China, when my mother was a single woman and met my father, both at that time single and missionaries in China. They were wed in the early 1940s, but during that time there was a heated civil war between the nationalists and the communists. And not only that, the Japanese were then also invading the country, coming in through Shanghai. And it was decided by the China Inland Mission, the mission board that my parents were serving under, that it was no longer safe for my parents to be living in Chongqing, which is where they were, in the southwest area of China. And they were requested to fly over the Himalayas in a DC-3 into India to avoid the tensions and the massacres that were occurring, especially with missionaries in China at that time. So a DC-3 was arranged. The supervisor of my parents were Mr. and Mrs. Graham Hutchinson. And as they were getting on the plane, Mr. Graham Hutchinson noticed that my mother was obviously pregnant, and there didn't happen to be enough seats for my mother and my father. And the Hutchinsons said, "We are not going to be getting on this plane ahead of you. We want you to take our seats, and we will fly out on the next airplane." Well, my father said, "No, we're going to wait till the next airplane." And Mr. Graham Hutchinson playfully responded, "I am your supervisor. We want you to get on the plane." So my mother and father did get on the plane, flew up over the Himalayas, landed in India safely, and were devastated to learn that on the next flight out of Chongqing, the DC-3 on which the Graham Hutchinsons were flying crashed into the Himalayas, and they were instantly killed. My mother was so moved by this and by their sacrifice that she told the Lord that if her firstborn child was a male, she was going to name that firstborn child after Mr. Graham Hutchinson. Well, her firstborn child was my older sister, Rosemary, who now lives in Seattle. And 1946, a couple of years later, when I was born, my mother then chose to name me Peter Graham Dunn in honor of the sacrifice of the Graham Hutchinsons. Our oldest son, Paul, who is 29, married to Summer Dunn, our daughter-in-law, are expecting their third grandchild. His first name, or her first name, is going to be Charlie, I understand. And if he or she happens to be a boy, and they refuse to do an amniocentesis, so they're going to wait until the child is born, if that child is born as a male child, they are going to be calling him Charlie Graham Dunn to perpetuate our honor of the sacrifice of the Graham Hutchinson family.